Welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by the National Student Support Accelerator, the New Jersey Tutoring Corps, the Partnership for Student Success, and the Pathways Alliance to celebrate and share information on the launch of the National Guideline Standards for Tutor Apprenticeship Programs. My name is Kate Cochran. I'm Managing Director of the Partnership for Student Success, which is a national coalition based at the Johns Hopkins University Everyone Graduates Center. We're composed of a group of nonprofit organizations, school districts, and higher education institutions, all committed to expanding evidence-based and people-powered K-12 student supports, including tutoring. And this webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the slides will be shared with everyone who attends, everyone who registered, within the next week or so. So what are we hoping to accomplish today? During today's webinar, we hope to share information on the opportunity presented by tutor apprenticeships, as well as the newly approved National Guideline Standards. This will include information on what high impact tutoring is and how it can build pipelines of talent into a range of education and youth development professions. You'll also hear from a range of organizations who are implementing apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship programs or tutors and other education professionals in similar roles, including student success coaches and early child education professionals, about how their programs operate and some considerations for starting a tutor apprenticeship program or similar model. And finally, we will end by sharing some implementation-focused resources beyond the National Guideline Standards that we think will be helpful to folks on this call considering implementing apprenticeship programs related to tutoring. As high-impact tutoring programs grow, evolve, and seek to diversify their funding streams, there's a promising opportunity to align programs with state workforce systems and apprenticeship pathways, expanding the support and recognition available for this evidence-based work of tutoring, and also the benefits to people who serve as tutors. To help realize this potential, the National Student Support Accelerator, the New Jersey Tutoring Corps, the Partnership for Student Success, and the Pathways Alliance have collaborated over the course of the last year and a half to develop a set of national guideline standards for tutor apprenticeship programs with the goal of creating a U.S. Department of Labor approved template for implementing high-quality tutor apprenticeship programs. The standards benefited from feedback from leaders in the high-impact tutoring, educator preparation, and workforce development fields, as well as feedback from a range of stakeholders. And I'm putting the link in the chat for everyone to see. And the standards also build on experience implementing other educator apprenticeship programs, as well as high impact tutoring programs, both apprenticeships and beyond. The National Guideline Standards, we're excited to announce, were approved and released by the U.S. Department of Labor in mid-July. And they outline key components of a successful tutor registered apprenticeship program, which can be customized to fit program needs at the local level. So these are guideline standards meant to be a template, but they can be shifted and changed, or the template can be shifted and changed at the local level based on what individual program needs are. And they include a range of sections, including competencies for tutor apprenticeships, mentoring structures for apprentices, sample progressive wage schedules for tutor apprenticeships, which are a required part of registered apprenticeships. They include sample-related instruction or professional development topics for tutor apprentices. They include an updated definition of the tutor profession, as well as a range of standard apprenticeship sponsor requirements and other requirements of high-quality apprenticeship programs. And to support tutoring providers, districts, states, and other potential sponsors of registered apprenticeship programs, the four hosts of this webinar, who I've named a couple times already, collaborated to create a tutor apprenticeships toolkit, which has some step-by-step guidance for considering and designing a tutor apprenticeship program that are consistent with the newly approved national guideline standards. I'll share these again at the end, along with a number of other resources, but this is one I want to highlight up front. We'll put it in the chat as well, along with a webinar that we did a few months ago specifically on that toolkit. So next, I'm really excited to introduce Kathy Bentheim. who is Director of Strategic Advising at the National Student Support Accelerator. And Kathy will share more about how the National Guideline Standards and apprenticeships more broadly can benefit high impact tutoring. Over to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kate. As Kate mentioned, I'm Kathy Bentheim. I'm with the National Student Support Accelerator. We are a program out of Stanford University, and our mission is to expand access to high-impact tutoring for students in need. We do that not through providing any direct tutoring ourselves, but by conducting research and taking what we learn from research to build tools and provide guidance through the strategic advising and engagement of districts and states. So essentially, we try to support districts and states to implement high impact tutoring with quality. And we are so honored to work with this incredible team of collaborators to make it easier for registered apprenticeship programs to launch and grow. What we have learned from the research is that tutoring is only effective if done in specific ways, as is shown in this chart. The primary characteristics, as are written there, are they effective programs are grounded in equity, safety, and cohesion. These programs are embedded in the student's school experience. The tutor uses data to inform instruction, meeting the student where they need it most. It takes place frequently, using high quality materials in small groups or one-on-one to allow relationships to develop and provide enough at-bats for the student. And importantly, it takes place with a well-trained and supported tutor. The research also is clear that one of the biggest challenges in high impact tutoring is ensuring that programs are implemented with fidelity. Because without these program characteristics, students won't have the opportunity to really fully accelerate their learning. So as you can imagine, we are super excited about the approval of the National Guideline Standards for many reasons, but specifically, the National Guideline Standards will make it easier for programs across the country to create these high quality programs. We're also excited because through this process, as Kate mentioned, the U.S. Department of Labor updated how they describe the tutor profession. And that definition is now more closely aligned with the research, as you can see on the next slide. A tutor is someone who builds a strong relationship with their students, uses student data to select appropriate materials and instructional strategies, design and execute regularly scheduled personalized tutoring sessions, and then, of course, the ultimate goal that lead to measurable learning gains for their specific students. And most importantly, we are excited because programs using the National Guideline Standards will be providing high quality training and instruction to ensure that tutor apprentices provide this type of tutoring, the type of tutoring that research says is most effective for students. And they're able to offer it in a way that provides support for the tutor, potentially expands funding opportunities, and does expand the educator pipeline. So now I'm excited to hand it over to Sabrina, who is going to talk a little bit more about registered tutor apprenticeships, and how they can expand the educator pipeline. Sabrina?
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Sure.
You really queued me up to really talk about why the Tutor NGS matters for expanding access to high impact tutoring and also recognizing tutoring as a skilled profession. I want to build on that by really placing tutor apprenticeships in the larger educator preparation landscape. For a very long time, we have treated the pathway into education as fairly linear, I would say. Someone decides that they want to become a teacher or a school leader, they complete preparation, and then they enter the profession. But I think what we have learned is that many future educators really first discover their strengths and interests while working directly with students. And that comes from being in roles like tutoring, mentoring, after-school program, classroom support, and even student success coaching. With tutor apprenticeships, they really create more of an intentional entry point into that pathway. They really allow people to earn while they learn, build real experience with students, and also receive structured coaching and related instruction. And that really supports in demonstrating the competencies needed really to be successful in this role. And I do believe that is something that's valuable in its own right. Students honestly deserve well-prepared tutors, and tutors really deserve meaningful preparation, support, and recognition in their work. With that, that allows this opportunity to really extend beyond tutoring. For some apprentices, tutoring may be a long-term profession, and for others, it can really be an early on-ramp to additional education roles. And that can include anything from a paraprofessional position to teaching to student success coaching, or even eventually school leadership. And we want to really acknowledge that this experience that they gain will support in building relationships with students, using data to really adjust the support, and also allows for collaboration with educators and families, and really understanding how learning happens in a foundational way across the workforce and education system. So that doesn't mean that every tutor apprentice or every tutor apprenticeship program should be designed as a teacher pipeline. Programs really should begin with the needs of their students, their communities, and the workforce. And when districts and educator preparation programs and workforce agency and tutor providers really work together, that there is an opportunity to create something that is very strong and foundational, and also allows clearer connections between these roles. And it also reduces unnecessary barriers for people who want to continue their growth in education. This is also why we really look at the apprenticeship landscape work in education to be so important. At the Pathways Alliance, we honestly have supported the National Guideline Standards across educator roles. We now have National Guideline Standards for tutors, teachers, and principals. And I will say that the Tutor NGS really adds an important layer, and often an overlooked part of this continuum, that really tutors are professionals that can provide focused, relationship-based academic support to students every day. And together, these efforts really invite us to think beyond the individual job titles and really toward a connected educator workforce that really, one, allows multiple entry points, meaningful advancement opportunities, and also a strong preparation at every stage. And while the Tutor NGS provides a national framework, I want to also name that implementation will look different across various ways. The registration process, partners, funding, and also even the needs that local workforce may have. So the goal is really not a one-size-fits-all model. It is really designed to give communities a strong foundation that they can adapt and also build high-quality opportunities for tutors, and where appropriate, strong pathways into other education professions. So we are very fortunate to have leaders in this space who are already putting these ideas into practice in different ways. And I am pleased to introduce Catherine Bassett, the CEO of New Jersey Tutoring Corps, who will talk about more of her experiences, and also continue to guide us through that conversation of experiences. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. I did a little bit of homework and discovered that apprenticeships have existed for over 4,000 years in a variety of professions. But it wasn't until January of 2022 that educator apprenticeships were formally recognized. Educator apprenticeships now exist in 45 states and the District of Columbia across a continuum of educator professionalism, from tutor apprentices all the way through administrator apprentices. Sabrina's organization, the Pathways Alliance, has initiated work on principal apprenticeships, for example. So apprenticeships are not something new, but tutor apprenticeships are very new. Sabrina, Kate, Katrina, and I were at the Apprenticeship for America conference in the spring, and educator apprenticeships were definitely the smallest group represented, with tutor apprenticeships being the baby of that group, if you will. Pretty much brand new. At New Jersey Tutoring Corps, we had the privilege of working very closely with Nicole Field, who I know is on this call, at the United States Department of Labor, to get the United States Department of Labor to recognize tutor as a profession. And that led to a pathway for registered apprenticeship programs for tutors. So some examples of on the ground registered apprenticeship programs for tutors, both apprentices and pre-apprentices, are on the ground models that we have with us today. It is my honor to introduce you to representatives from 4 organizations. It is also my burden to have to hold them to about 4.5 minutes each as they speak. These are incredible experts who could each speak for hours on the topic of tutor apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. But we are going to hear from Ashley Benkin, Chief of Staff at the New Jersey Tutoring Corps, Katrina Gobbins, Executive Director of New York Programs at Impact, Matt Pasternak, the CEO of Once, Courtney Richardson, the CEO of the Pure Power Foundation, and Marlon Ross, the Director of Workforce and Resource Development at the Pure Power Foundation. So I'm going to ask us to kick things off with Ashley. Kate, if you would. Ashley, you are the mastermind behind the first registered tutor apprenticeship program in the country through your work at New Jersey Tutoring Corps. Now that the first cohort of apprentices has been certificated or is well on their way to being certificated by U.S. Department of Labor, and have also launched a pre-apprenticeship program this summer, what are some of the initial learnings that you've taken away about the impact of tutor apprentices, not only on the profession, but particularly on our students?
Thank you, Catherine. It's great to be here today to highlight how the work has already taken hold over here in New Jersey. So as we reflect back on the first cohort that we've supported, I would say there were 3 main learnings. First, the apprenticeship experience in the tutoring occupation built immense confidence in our tutors, many of whom had started teacher preparation programs and either been advised to stop or quit based on the availability of funding, time, life, all of those reasons. And so finding their way back into the classroom through our tutor apprenticeship reinstilled that confidence, that drive, and that desire to serve students in the most important ways, as the most vulnerable students need that support. The second thing that we noticed across our cohort was that it provided the time and the money for these individuals that were looking to either find a new career within education if they had stepped out of the classroom, or looking to find a way into the classroom, but various certification requirements or life experiences were prohibiting them from being able to get that started. So working for us, they earn a very good wage and have the opportunity to attend post-secondary coursework, should that be their education gap, and or study, prepare, and pass their Praxis content exams. So that was a huge positive impact that we heard from our first cohort. And then the second was the fact that our tutors received kind of 2 forms of coaching. As you heard Sabrina mention, the instructional coaching that happens aligned to work process scheduling and clear outcomes. They received that from the instructional coach and was firmly grounded in the instruction they're providing for the student grade level and the content area. But they also received career coaching and advice. So as they're navigating all of the options that are out there, the millions of websites and different opportunities for different universities or different endorsement areas to become certified, not knowing where they should start or what skill sets they even have and how that translates into that world, having the opportunity to have a career coach and advisor meet with them, help them, encourage them, cheer them back on when they may not pass a content exam the first time, and then also facilitate some additional funding through the apprenticeship grants we were able to secure. So those 3 things together really made careers in tutoring and futures expansion careers into education really possible. And then I would say we just received some of our results. So the last thing that we have learned was that our tutor apprentices were equally, if not more effective than our regular apprentices. Just as a quick example, the students that worked with our tutor apprentices in math started the school year 1% on grade level and ended the year 22% on grade level, with essentially like almost a 93% attendance rate. So it's information like that and impact like that makes us really proud and confident that running the apprenticeship program has created more transparent, outcome-driven coaching and support to people in these really critical on-the-ground roles that ultimately helps students learn, grow, and achieve. So thank you for letting me share a little bit of what we've already learned from our first cohort.
And Ashley, thank you for keeping that to exactly 4 minutes. I would next like to introduce Matt Pasternak, who is the CEO of Once. Once recently earned a separate set of National Guideline Standards approval by the U.S. Department of Labor to support specifically early literacy tutors in Once's national network of licensed partners. Matt, could you tell us more about how having National Guideline Standards for tutor apprenticeship has benefited your students and your partners?
Certainly. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here with such a wonderful group of colleagues discussing this topic. I want to start by just giving a quick overview of Once, because I think that will contextualize why we sought out these separate national guideline standards. Once is a program that upskills frontline entry-level support staff in elementary schools to provide one-on-one reading tutoring to kindergartners and first graders. And the way that we do that is the tutor and the first grader or the kindergartner sit side by side in front of an open laptop computer. And as they're going through daily in-person one-on-one instruction, all of that instruction is actually being recorded. And we have a network of coaches who watch those recordings and provide weekly coaching to the paraprofessionals who are delivering the instruction, existing school staff delivering the instruction. When we came across tutor apprenticeships, hearing about it from Ashley and from Catherine at National Student Support Accelerator conference, we realized that we were already effectively guiding districts in setting up tutor apprenticeship programs. We were providing related instruction through coaching. We were working with them on the logistics and all of the key pieces that allow you to really build a tutor apprenticeship program. We just weren't calling it that. And so at the time, there was not kind of a national set of guidelines for all apprentice tutors. There was just one for New Jersey Tutoring Corps. And we said, we know how scrappy school districts are in trying to get the very best for their students and the very best for their staff. And so we said, if we are effectively already helping them operate an apprentice tutoring program, why wouldn't we want to get national guideline standards approved so that we could give them even additional resources to formalize that, both in terms of funding opportunities available from the state and local workforce boards, as well as just a more formalized career progression pathway. I will say, in all transparency, now that this new national guideline standards have been approved, we wouldn't have needed to do that. So I am so thrilled about the implementation of these new standards, because it allows all sorts of programs, much like ours, that were effectively already running an apprentice tutor program to get that recognition, potentially be in line for funding without having to go through a fairly large and detailed administrative process to secure their own national guideline standards. I'll close just with sort of one quick pitch on the urgency here, which is I think there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of dissatisfaction among students graduating high school and in early college about what their career path is going to be, after college or after high school. And, ripped from the headlines today, the unemployment rate for recent college grads is only slightly lower than the unemployment rate for non-college grads. And so folks are wondering, what are secure kind of AI disruption-proof pathways forward? And the talent pipeline that goes from, a pre-apprenticeship tutoring to apprentice tutor to paraprofessional to classroom teacher to school leader is I think one of the few opportunities out there that is filled with meaning that is deeply resonant to recent high school and college graduates, and is, I think, quite safe from the AI disruptions of the future. And so this is a need that young students have, and it's a need that districts have to build their talent pipelines. And so we're just thrilled to participate in this community and help more school districts build apprentice tutor pathways that lead to teacher apprentice pathways, that lead to principal apprentice pathways, and lead to really fulfilling lives for all involved.
Thank you so much, Matt. Courtney, the Pure Power Foundation partners with a sister organization at the University of Memphis, the Pure Power Institute, and you were recently approved to launch a registered apprenticeship program, or RAP, for success coaches in Tennessee. This will give college students a pathway to a national credential. Could you describe for us the role of a success coach and how they will impact both the profession and student learning? Courtney, you're on mute.
Okay, hello, everyone. Thank you so much, and so happy to be here. I want to first start off by saying, from a proof standpoint, I started in this profession years ago as a success coach, and now I have the opportunity to lead Peer Power as an organization. So when I think about the impact that an apprenticeship program can have on the profession and do these things work, I think about my own journey. So for me, it only made sense that we built out this model and aligned it with this whole apprenticeship pathway piece. I know that it works, right? We know that the apprenticeship pathways work. And so let me talk about what a success coach actually is. A success coach is not a volunteer. It's not a stipend position. It's not a 1099 contracted employee. It's an actual W-2 employee who works and receives an hourly wage. And I'm leading with that because structurally, when we start talking about how apprentices are a part of the work that we do, it is important to know that this is an opportunity for them to go on further and do this work long term, not just short term, but long term, which adds to the amount of folks who can be engaged in this work. They are embedded in classrooms. There is, Kathy will be happy to hear this, there's a 1-to-4 ratio. They do small groups pullouts 3 times a week across 30 weeks. So there is alignment. It's also near peer. There are college students who are serving in schools, and their role is teacher adjacent by design. There's relationship, there's dosage, and there's data. And why did Tennessee approve it? And we went through a process. We had to have folks from the state come and tour, look at our training, watch what we were doing. They then went back and had meetings. Marlon Ross is on the call, and he was a part of that process with us. But what they realized is that because we are connected with the University of Memphis through the Peer Power Institute, the University of Memphis Peer Power Institute serves as the related instruction engine. And so this credential is not just something that's bolted on. It has already been a part of the university partnership. It was already there. This model is 21 years in the making. And what we realized is that an apprenticeship already existed. So we did not build a program to fit a standard. The standard, let me say, what this industry is doing, what Kathy is doing, what the folks have done in New Jersey, the industry, I think, is now catching up with what we were already doing. So it is great to hear that the national guidelines have adopted the definition of what tutoring actually is. The industry just needed to catch up. And so, Catherine, when you go to that conference again, we won't be the babies in the room. We're going to at least be the infants, right? And so the impact on the profession. This converts to an on-ramp with wages, credentials, and it is a documented competency set. It addresses the educator pipeline, and it actually allows young people to break through into this education industry, not just as teachers, but in multiple different areas they will be able to serve. And then let me say it ties to the larger infrastructure here in Tennessee of our workforce development goals here in Tennessee. And let me talk now about the impact on student learning. Impact on student learning. We've received the badge from NSSA and the University of Memphis. And we've also seen that the return on investment is for every dollar that is spent, you actually get $3 in return of impact from this type of work. So when we talk about the impact on student learning, how far this can go, it is important for us to understand that the investment is absolutely worth it on student learning. We see that the apprenticeship raises the floor. The standardized competencies means quality doesn't depend on which coach you get. Every coach that you receive will receive these standards. Okay. So, last thing I'll say is that the success coach role proves that you can serve students well and build the next generation of educators with the same dollar.
Courtney, thank you so much for that passionate description of your program. I truly appreciate it. And I'd like to turn to our last panelist, Katrina Gobbins. Katrina, ANPACT recently established an early childhood education pre-apprenticeship program in partnership with a local organization in New York State that allows you to put AmeriCorps members in your early learning corps, capital letters, early learning corps, on a pathway toward apprenticeship and certification. What impact do you see this pre-apprenticeship having on early learning career corps members and their students?
Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I think the impact really comes down to what we can call like a dual impact opportunity, right? So we're supporting children today, like just what Courtney was talking about, the impact we're having with our children, but also developing like the early childhood workforce we are going to need tomorrow, or actually more like today. So just a little context, we launched Early Learning Corps and K-3 Math Corps in New York in 2023 with a very student-centered goal, right? Ensuring more students enter kindergarten ready to learn and helping close those academic gaps. And through our programs, we recruit, we train, and we support members who provide this high impact evidence-based tutoring during the school day, but also but as we were expanding, we also were starting to recognize that something else was happening. So our members weren't just having an impact on the children we were serving. Many of them were discovering interest in education as a career for the first time. And when we did a survey with our members, 75% of them told us they were interested in pursuing a career in education after their service. And that's like a really powerful indicator for us, right? We realized we already had people gaining meaningful experience in the classroom. They were receiving training and coaching from ANPACT. They were building relationships with children and educators. And they were discovering that they were really good at this work. Like they enjoy working with children. And then the question became how do we make sure that this pathway doesn't end when their AmeriCorps service ends, right? Our members can return for another year's service, or they just leave and they either continue college or they go on and about in their career. So that's really where, when I was sitting with my team, we came up with the pre-apprenticeship idea to put something together. And one of the most important lessons for us has been that a pre-apprenticeship needs to be built with purpose. It shouldn't be developed in a silo, and it shouldn't simply provide training without a clear connection to what comes next. And so we were very intentional about building our collaboration partners who could create that continuum. So we partnered with our local community college that actually had funding available for pre-apprenticeship programming, and they weren't using it at that time. And they were interested in developing something innovative with us. So rather than us trying to recreate something, the college was already there positioned to help us to become that related instruction provider for the pre-apprenticeship program. And then we also had early education centers that had current registered apprenticeship programs already working. There just wasn't that pre-apprenticeship program in our community. So our AmeriCorps members were able to participate in that related instruction while they were actively serving the AmeriCorps at the same time. So they didn't have to choose between service and career preparation. Those two experiences were just kind of happening together. And on that completion of the pre-apprenticeship, they also received a certificate of completion. So more importantly, when they completed, it was designed to transfer into a registered apprenticeship program, right? So they were able to continue on that pathway if they wanted to. So I would just really encourage anyone considering a career apprenticeship model to start with that registered apprenticeship at the other end, right? Build in collaboration with something that's already there. A registered apprenticeship program so that training has value beyond the pre-apprenticeship itself. Otherwise, as some of you know, like we risk creating another well-intentional program that gives someone a certificate, but it's not really moving them towards furthering a career pathway, right? And then the impact, for our members are that connection can be incredibly powerful because it makes a career in early childhood education more accessible, which we know is very hard to find professions in the early education field. And not everyone can stop working and enroll in traditional degree program, right? So AmeriCorps allows someone to gain that meaningful classroom experience while receiving a living allowance and other supports. And now we can layer that career connected layer on top of that experience. And then I'm kind of going to end with that where I can see the impact of the children as well, right? So in the immediate term, the children are receiving, like all of our programs, consistent individualized support from a trained AmeriCorps member during an incredibly important time in their development. But the longer impact, I think, is that we're helping develop people who may remain in the education field for years, right? So when I think about the impact of this pre-apprenticeship program, I don't think it as like a standalone program. I think it more of like about it as a bridge. So AmeriCorps in our tutoring can provide that service and hands-on learning, and our community college provides that related instruction and credentialing, and our registered apprenticeship partner, provides that defined next step in that process. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we are investing in the child sitting in the classroom today, while we're also investing in the person who may be leading that classroom tomorrow. And so I'll end it with, I think it's that dual impact. I think pre-apprenticeship pathway has that potential to create. So thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. So that was a wonderful array of different kinds of programs, different uses of apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. And I'd like to do a lightning round in 30 seconds or less, which I know is basically impossible, but try. What is one piece of advice that you have for efforts to launch apprenticeship programs for tutors and other educators in similar roles? And Ashley, could we start with you?
Sure thing. Ask for help and don't assume that this isn't a good fit for you until you either work through some of the toolkit resources that you'll hear more about today, or join our working group so that you can hear from us in more practical, casual, down-to-earth ways.
Thank you, Ashley. Matt.
I would think about all of the staff in your district and in your buildings who you might not consider to be tutors today, or sort of part of a teacher pipeline today, but who you can basically roll into becoming tutors today, and then watch as their eagerness for the profession just transforms and their investment in student results transforms. And you've got all the folks in this call here ready to help you execute on that type of vision.
So again, I'm hearing ask for help, ask for help. You have wonderful experts here that you can ask for help. Courtney.
Yes, I would say, as I kind of stated earlier, don't design the apprenticeship first. Find the role. Kathy and this team, there was already a role in place, and it's a role that you're already doing well with. You pay people properly already, and then wrap the credential around it. So, what the folks at Tennessee said to us is that employers who start with the standard build the program nobody wants, but employers who start with the work, they actually build good pipelines.
I love that. What wonderful, wonderful advice. Thank you, Courtney. And Katrina.
I would just reinforce as well as what I said is don't do it in silo, collaborate. You shouldn't have to do it alone. There are lots of people with a lot of experience that we are all willing to work together, not against each other. So just collaborate with as many people as you can.
So collaboration, learning from what's come before, learn from the mistakes that others have already made. And boy, have we all made a lot of mistakes. So learn from our mistakes and take forward from these wonderful experts that we've heard from this afternoon, the successes that they've had, the questions that they still have, and the areas that they continue to explore. So we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Courtney, I have a question from Nicole Field, actually. Can you share where you got the ROI numbers of 1 to 3?
So we had an independent group come in and evaluate the investment into our program. And when they looked at the multiple layer of impact, where the college student is being prepared to go into the workforce, and then the academic impact that that work has on students as well, they looked at that, their formula, and said, "Wait a minute, if someone wants to invest in this type of program, you're really getting a 300-fold impact with just $1."
Thank you. Gustavo Luna is asking, we developed at Kern Tutoring a teacher talent pipeline via our tutoring program in 2020 and partnered with a local university and school district. What are steps to connecting with the National Register program to obtain accreditation? And I know you could all answer those, so anybody jump in.
Gustavo, you should join our working group. So it depends on the state you're in. And if you're lucky enough to be in New Jersey, then you would talk with someone like Nicole Field. If you're in different states, every state has a different person and group of people that are in charge of the approved programs. So you'll make a connection with them, ask them for what has been approved, and then begin that process of translating, like Courtney mentioned, the opportunity that's on the ground, the program that you've designed, into which standards and occupation fit that program best. And accreditation is education language, so don't say that here. You're going to learn that fast.
Any other words of wisdom from our other panelists before I go on to the next question? Okay, the next question builds on the first one. Once you got approval for a RAP, for a registered apprenticeship program, how did you go about securing funding to support your program? Some panelists spoke about pre-apprenticeships. How do these differ from registered apprenticeships? So 2 questions. Let's do the first one first. Once you're approved as a RAP, how do you secure funding? Where does the funding come from to run your programs? Ashley, I'm going to pick on you because you have an easy answer.
I was going to be quiet and let others
I
jump
know
in.
you are.
So we applied for some grant funding. Every state, when we're lucky, receives federal dollars from the U.S. Department of Labor. Those states then make state level decisions on how to distribute those funds in competitive grants, very similar to how education receives funding. New Jersey created pre-apprentice grant opportunity and then expansion kind of grant opportunities. So that's one way that funding can be achieved. The others is through the local workforce boards receive dollars that help offset different costs for training and supporting your employees, kind of following like the way AmeriCorps stipends and like programs have been built. That's the closest that I can get that I think is something that people on this call can connect to. But again, those are really wonderful questions that you would talk through with your ATR or state representative. And I think Courtney and Marlon also have some experience that they can add to this question.
Courtney, Marlon?
Absolutely. As you're building out your apprenticeship, definitely lean in and communicate with your ATR and your representatives from your local state level Department of Labor. Get those connections with your local workforce board members, because it's important to understand that when you receive approval for your registered apprenticeship, that does not guarantee funding. All right, that does not guarantee funding, and so you definitely need to understand that and begin meeting with local workforce boards and understanding what their allocation for funding is year to year, to understand these funding streams for your apprenticeships.
And Marilyn, just for people who may not have picked up on it earlier, what is an ATR?
So an ATR is your representative from the Department of Labor who will assist you with ensuring that you are compliant with your registered apprenticeship, and that if you have any questions or need assistance, your ATR is your go-to person.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Katrina, do you want to speak to funding through AmeriCorps?
Yes. So funding through AmeriCorps, it provides what everyone would think, right? The stipends for the members, right? To continue and complete their service. Pre-apprenticeship is like a completely different boat, right? So we have the AmeriCorps guidelines in the service that we have to complete. And pre-apprenticeship funds, just as Ashley was saying, really is determined by your state, right? If they're going to allocate funds to be used for pre-apprenticeship, a lot of local institutions can apply for those funds, right? They're getting money funneled down through our SUNY education system, and they're allowed to partner with agencies that want to run pre-apprenticeship programming. So that money that funnels through them pays for the related instruction that our members received. So we did have to kind of keep those monies separate, right? Of course. But it's very limited pre-apprenticeship money in the world. It really depends on if your state it believes, they want to have pre-apprenticeship money coming in, expansion money, but the WIO, the Workforce Investment Act money too, there is pre-apprenticeship money in there too as well. So I would definitely say explore with your workforce investment boards as well.
Thank you. And then the last question that I see, programmatically, so not speaking about funding, but programmatically, how does pre-apprenticeship differ from apprenticeship? Go ahead.
Question everyone still has. Anyone else want to answer that one? Can't go through. It's pre-apprenticeship doesn't have the guidelines as what a registered apprenticeship program has. So technically you can develop a pre-apprenticeship program of how you feel would be best to be run, right? In collaboration with a registered apprenticeship. So that's why I really spoke a lot about having to work without a registered apprenticeship program to develop an effective pre-apprenticeship program. So it doesn't just live in silo that when they complete your pre-apprenticeship program, there's nothing after that they need to really work together with that registered apprenticeship. So that registered apprenticeship program is the one that can get that additional funding coming in, right? They have a very structured program happening. You have to follow those guidelines. The pre-apprenticeship is very lenient on that, but I very caution that in the development is that you just ensure that you're aligning with a registered apprenticeship program so that those hours can roll into that registered apprenticeship program. So it's a very cohesive and a certificate of completion. It's something that's more valuable to make it, if that answered the question.
And Ashley, do you want to add anything about NJTC's pre-apprenticeship program?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in for us this summer. What we saw because how we know school years can feel so truncated and almost summer disappears, and all of a sudden we're gearing up again for our partnerships. Our pre-apprentice program started in June and is running about 20 weeks, and it created a longer runway for our tutors that are looking to come and join our apprenticeship in the fall to not feel overwhelmed and rushed in learning a lot of information all at once. When you think about just joining a new organization or starting a new job, you have, foundational, like, how do I put in my time, all the way to what is my job, who are the people, building those relationships, and then not to mention the most important, how do I make sure I'm building relationships with students and delivering good instruction. So in the past, we saw that training didn't have enough time. And so being able to leverage the pre-apprentice strategy, it does exactly what Katrina said. It's going to create this more intentional rollout and connection to the apprenticeship program. And so we're excited to see how those results impact success this year too.
Thank you. And then we do have an additional question. For someone who's interested in becoming an apprentice tutor and then a tutor, but can only work during the summer, what opportunities are there for them to do this kind of work? Anybody? Can only work
I think
during the summer.
I think that that question has much to do with the individual tutoring agency. I do know that there are some tutoring programs that operate in the summer and not all during the school year. So I think that that is a question that can be answered specific to the tutoring provider. However, when we look at the guidelines and we look at the time that must be put in order to be an apprentice, it's probably going to be a little difficult to complete the apprenticeship hours in the summer only. We need a little more time. Kathy and Ashley and the team has put a lot of work into identifying what those national guidelines are, and I don't think a summer will help us reach those guidelines.
But if you wanted to work as a tutor, not an apprentice, but as a tutor in the summer, Courtney, what you're saying is look into local tutoring organizations where you live and find out when their programs in the summer are running, because there are many tutoring programs that do function in the summer, either through community-based organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs or Y Alliance sites, or through school districts that are having summer programs. Kate, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you so much to all of our panelists. Just really appreciate each of you for taking the time out of what I know are really busy schedules to share your expertise and your wisdom today. And thank you for the work that you do. This is difficult, it's innovative, it's new. Even though the apprenticeship piece is new, but Courtney, to your point, I know all of you were doing this work before you were doing doing exciting work before you were doing apprenticeships. So just really appreciate all of you and Catherine for your amazing moderation. So I am going to, our last thing today is a resource share. So we have a number of resources. Some of these I shared up front, but a number of resources that folks on this call have identified as particularly useful for implementation. So some things that I want to share, I will put these links in the chat as well. One, the National Guideline Standards for Tutor Apprenticeships, obviously. And then two, the Tutor Apprenticeship Toolkit and the corresponding webinar link. Those are two really important resources that I think if you're considering starting or designing or considering a tutor apprenticeship program, those are things that I would check out first. In particular, the Tutor Apprenticeship Toolkit, which I don't know everyone on this call, but we are assuming a fairly education-heavy audience, and that toolkit I think does a good job of translating some of the workforce development and labor language vernacular into what we're a bit more used to in the education space. Next, just today, the Partnership for Student Success and the Pathways Alliance released a new resource. There was a question in the Q&A about the apprentice to journey worker ratio in the National Guideline Standards. That is one journey worker to every two apprentices. And a journey worker is an experienced person in the profession or a mentor who supports an apprentice throughout their earn and learn journey, really providing structured mentorship and support throughout their apprenticeship process. This ratio is much lower than typical mentoring and supervision structures in the high impact tutoring field. And so we are doing some thinking in our working group about how we might support organizations that are interested in requesting an expanded ratio in a way that is still consistent with Department of Labor guidelines, state guidelines, safety, supervision requirements, et cetera. So we released a new resource that is in the chat that outlines what we were able to find anyway on existing state policies for requesting an expanded apprentice to journey worker ratio. Many states have this information publicly available for how to go through the process. In those cases, we linked to those forms or to those particular rules or legislation for that information on how to request an expanded ratio. In other states, we could not find information, or they explicitly do not allow it. And so in those places, we anticipate updating this resource. If you're from a state that you know has this process and it's not on our list, tell us. We want to update that resource so that as many people have access as possible. Two webinars you'll see in the chat and on this slide feature folks from this call and others speaking about tutor apprenticeships specifically. I include these just because we've been talking a lot about this over the course of the last year and a half, and want to share two additional resources to hear more about programs in action, in particular the New Jersey Tutoring Corps model, in more detail than you were able to hear in Ashley's 4 minutes today. And then there's also a sample program detail from the New Jersey Tutoring Corps, and then the apprenticeships.gov website. This is a place that has a lot of useful resources, including National Guideline Standards, including sample work process schedules and other resources for registered apprenticeships in tutoring and in other fields. And then,
Could I interrupt for
oh yeah.
just 1 second? You're going to share the deck, correct?
I am going to share the deck. In the event, don't feel like you need to copy everything from the chat. This will go out, and we'll include these links actually in the body of the email within 1 week. So don't feel like you have to take detailed notes.
Because people are asking how they join the tutor apprenticeship working group. And then some people are also letting us know that the links in the chat aren't coming through as clickable links.
Oh.
So yeah, so sharing the will be helpful.
Thank you, Catherine. And definitely, we will definitely be sharing all the links following this webinar. And to answer the question about how to join the Tutor Apprenticeship Working Group, I'm going to put this in the chat. If it doesn't work, you will get an email from me. Do not worry. But the 4 organizations that hosted this webinar, Partnership for Student Success, New Jersey Tutoring Corps, National Student Support Accelerator, and Pathways Alliance, co-host a bi-monthly tutor apprenticeships working group. It's fairly new. We're going into our, I think our 3rd meeting next week, August 20th. This is an opportunity for practitioners who are interested in, or either are already implementing a tutor apprenticeship or similar, could be success coach, similar apprenticeship program, or people who are strongly considering this, or people who are really just interested in learning more. But this is really a practitioner-focused audience, nonprofit providers, districts, state education agencies, others in this type of space. And there's a quick form that you can fill out to join that. If you're interested, I encourage you to fill it out shortly after you get the email from me, just so you can join our August 20th meeting. If not, you can join us in October. We also have a tutor to supervisor ratio survey that is currently out. This gets to this point that somebody brought up in the Q&A around ratio of tutor apprentice to journey worker. There's a lot of research and data published on student to tutor ratios in the high impact tutoring space, and we have tons of information on what the optimal and most effective ratio is when it comes to tutor to student. There is very little published, very little research that is not that has been conducted, but that is published on the optimal ratio of tutor to supervisor, tutor to experienced tutor or mentor. And so as we explore options to support organizations, support apprenticeship sponsors in requesting those expanded ratios, if it's the right thing for your particular model, we are working to build that evidence base and get some data from folks in the high impact tutoring field on what are your current supervision ratios, whether you're doing apprenticeships or not, just in high impact tutoring. So I encourage you to complete that. I will make sure we get this out today so that you can meet our Friday deadline. And we're offering a raffle for some Amazon gift cards for folks who fill that out. These are just a number of resources. Our team is working to develop others as emerging issues come out. And thank you, Jen. Our Perfect. As we learn more from the Tutor Apprenticeships Working Group and other conversations that we have, we plan to develop additional resources to meet the needs of the field. So with that, I really want to thank all of our speakers and all of our panelists for joining us today and sharing your expertise. Really excited about the launch of the National Guideline Standards and this important milestone, but more excited to see what comes in the upcoming year and years when it comes to expansion of tutor and other educator apprenticeship programs. So thank you all.